Welcome to the deep dive. So today our mission is really to cut through some of that textbook English stuff. We want to arm you with just four really crucial phrases that can instantly, you know, make your everyday conversations sound more fluent, more natural. We're talking about high use phrases, the kind of verbal shortcuts native speakers use all the time, managing life, sounding natural.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing the words, right? It's about understanding how and when to use them. Pragmatics. The material we looked at, it really focuses on that real-world spoken English. The phrases for work, with friends, when you're traveling. You master these four, you'll definitely communicate more smoothly.
Yeah, they're like essential tools for your communication toolkit. So we've broken this deep dive down into four main areas. We'll look at getting around, transportation talk, then how to ask for help politely. After that, discussing strategy, like how to approach something together. And finally, reporting when something's gone wrong, but doing it calmly. Ready to jump into the first one, getting around?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so phrase number one. It seems simple, but learners sometimes stumble over it. How are you getting somewhere?
Right. And the key thing here is its function. It's purely about logistics. The method of transport. Bus, car, taxi, walking. That's it. That's not asking about your feelings or anything like that. When someone asks, how are you getting to the office? They just need the travel info.
Yeah,
Maybe for their planning, maybe for yours. It's transactional.
that makes sense. Maybe other languages combine those ideas, like how you're traveling and how you feel about the journey. But in English, this one's usually just practical. How are you getting to work tomorrow?
And the answer is usually direct. I'm taking the metro.
What?
Or I'm driving.
Getting the train. Walking. Yeah, short and sweet. It's the how, not really the when or why.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets interesting for sounding really natural, the speed. Native speakers compress things, don't they?
Oh, definitely. It's all about efficiency in speech.
So how does that work with this phrase? Because that feels like the difference between textbook and, just chatting with a friend.
Well, that are you part often gets squeezed. It can sound like are ya or even just ya. So instead of how are you getting home, you'll very often hear something much faster, like how you getting home or how you getting to the party. That compression, that speed, is a big sign of natural, casual speech.
How you getting? Okay, that clicks. It's like linguistic efficiency for a common daily question. But what about formality? If you were, say, asking a CEO at a conference how they're getting to the next event, you wouldn't use how you getting, would you?
Good point. No, probably not. In a more formal, high-stakes situation like that, you'd likely slow down a bit. You'd enunciate more clearly. How are you getting to the next venue? You match the formality of the situation. That casual how you getting is perfect for colleagues, friends, relaxed settings, where informality is fine.
So it's about knowing your audience and the context. Use the speed, but gauge the situation. That's a great tip.
Precisely. Context is key.
Okay, let's shift gears from transport to interaction, asking for help. This brings us to phrase two. Could I ask you a favor?
Ah, yes. This one is, well, it's a classic example of English politeness in action. It's a very soft way to ask for something. You're signaling respect before you even make the actual request.
Yeah.
It lowers the pressure. By calling it a favor, you're already acknowledging it requires some effort from them. That makes it feel less like a demand.
Right, it's super versatile too. We saw it used at work, like, could I ask you a favor? Could you just glance at these figures before the meeting? It sounds so much better than just, check these figures. Much less blunt.
Exactly. And personally, too. Maybe coordinating with another parent. Can I ask you a favor? Would you mind grabbing Leo from practice today? It sets a nice collaborative tone right away.
Okay, this raises something the sources really emphasized. The difference between using could and can here. Why is could so much better? Is it just a little bit more polite?
It's actually a bit more strategic than just a little bit. Think of it as linguistic distancing. Can asks about ability. Are you physically able to do this? It's quite direct. Could, though. Could is a modal verb. It puts the request into a slightly more hypothetical space, like, is this a possibility? That little bit of hypothetical distance makes it feel less immediate, less demanding. You're implicitly acknowledging the right to say no. And that feeling of lowered pressure, that's perceived as more respectful, especially upwards, like to a boss, or outwards, like to a stranger or a new client.
Wow, okay. So it's using grammar, a subtle shift in verbs to manage the social dynamics. That's the deep dive insight there.
Absolutely. It's quite clever when you break it down. And don't forget the follow-up.
Ah.
Once they agree, politeness demands you close the loop. A simple thank you or great, I really appreciate it is essential. It keeps the interaction smooth.
Perfect. So politeness gets the favor done. Now let's look at how we use language, maybe even polite language, to figure out the approach to something. This takes us to phrase 3. How would you like to play?
Yes, I really like this phrase. It nicely combines two big values in communication today, collaboration and flexibility.
Mm.
And like you said in the outline, it has that dual meaning, which makes it quite useful.
Yeah, the literal meaning is easy, right? Like in sports or a game. How do you want to play this tennis
Yeah.
match? Aggressively.
Right. Simple. But the metaphorical use, that's where it gets really powerful in everyday situations. Think about coworkers prepping for a tricky client meeting. One asks, okay, so how would you like to play this? It completely changes the feeling. It's not, here's the plan. It's, let's decide the plan together. It invites input.
Instead of asking, say, what's your strategy, which sounds a bit formal, maybe even confrontational.
Exactly. Strategy can sound a bit clinical or like there's one right way. How would you like to play this? Feels more like let's figure out our moves. It suggests adapting, working together, sharing the responsibility for how it turns out.
Can you give us another example? Maybe something outside of just a work meeting to show its flexibility.
Sure. Let's say two friends are trying to navigate a difficult family situation. Maybe mediate a disagreement. One might say to the other, okay, this is sensitive. How would you like to play this? Should we talk to them individually first or all together? See, it's a gentle way to seek agreement on how to handle something delicate. It's not just about tactics. It's about preference and managing the emotional side, too.
That makes it such a valuable phrase for any learner. It's basically the go-to way to say, I'm ready to work with you on this. What's your preferred approach?
Precisely. It's the ultimate consensus builder. That's why you hear it so often in any kind of problem-solving chat, really across the board.
Okay, brilliant. So let's move to our final pillar, reporting issues. How do we talk about things going wrong without causing, unnecessary conflict? That's phrase 4. There's something wrong with something.
Yes, this is your essential utility phrase for calm, non-confrontational reporting. When something just isn't working as it should, a device, a process, anything, this structure lets you state the problem objectively. You're not blaming anyone, you're not venting frustration, you're just pointing out the fault, cleanly and clearly.
So for objects, it's pretty straightforward. It means it's broken or defective, like there's something wrong with my laptop, the screen keeps flickering, or there's something wrong with the Wi-Fi. Even for something like a document, right? There's something wrong with these numbers. They don't add up.
Exactly. And notice how factual it sounds. That factual quality is really useful in, say, service situations. It helps in conflict resolution. Imagine you're in a restaurant. Instead of saying, this soup is terrible, which is subjective, maybe a bit aggressive.
Well, it puts them on the defensive immediately.
Yeah, you're much more likely to get a helpful response if you say calmly, excuse me, I think there's something wrong with my soup. It seems to be cold.
Yeah.
It's observational. It states the problem clearly but politely. Better for getting things sorted out smoothly.
It's the language of observation, not just complaint. That's key for navigating social interactions, isn't it?
Absolutely. But now, let's touch on where this phrase needs a bit more care, applying it to people.
Ah, yes. Saying there's something wrong with him or her, that feels different.
Very different. You wouldn't just toss that out casually. When used about a person, it almost always signals concern, real concern. It implies they seem unwell, deeply upset, or are acting really out of character. Not just that they annoyed you. You typically use it carefully, maybe when talking privately to another friend, like, have you noticed, I think there's something wrong with Sarah lately. She seems really down.
So it's reserved for situations where you're genuinely worried about someone's state, their well-being, not just a casual critique. That distinction is really important for learners to grasp.
Crucial. It flags a potentially serious issue without being overly dramatic or judgmental.
Okay, fantastic. Let's quickly pull all this together then. We've covered 4 really core phrases from everyday English. Using them should help you sound more natural almost immediately.
Yeah, we've seen that sounding fluent often involves being efficient, being polite, knowing the context. So number 1, how are you getting somewhere? For transport logistics, remember the casual compression. How are you getting?
Number 2, could I ask you a favor? That polite, soft approach, using could for requests, managing social dynamics.
3, how would you like to play? The collaborative phrase for figuring out strategy or approach together. Very flexible.
And 4, there's something wrong with something. Your go-to for reporting issues objectively, calmly, whether it's a broken phone or used carefully, concern for a person.
And the key now is active practice, right? Don't just memorize them.
Definitely try using them. Next time you're making plans, ask a friend. So how you getting there? Or if you need help, hey, could I ask you a quick favor?
Absolutely. Use them in short dialogues, even just in your head first. It makes them stick. This deep dive really shows how much of fluency is tied up in understanding that unspoken social contract in English, the nuance behind the words.
Yeah, we focused a lot today on politeness, collaboration, softening things.
We did. And that actually leads to an interesting thought, maybe something for you to chew on after this.
Oh,
Well, we've seen how politeness works to make requests easier or report problems gently. But sometimes that politeness in English can be a bit, well, deceptive.
deceptive. How so?
Think about phrases that sound incredibly friendly, really soft, but are actually delivering a negative message, like a very firm no wrapped in polite language, or even a subtle dismissal. How do speakers manage to sound so agreeable on the surface while clearly rejecting an idea or shutting down a conversation?
Ah, the polite brush off or the indirect no. That is a whole other level of nuance, isn't it?
It is. That's the next layer you could explore, the hidden meanings behind the courtesy. Something to think about.
That's a great provocative thought to end on, the complexity beneath the surface of politeness. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these essential action phrases. We really hope these 4 tools help your English feel more effective and natural straight away.
Keep practicing. Keep listening. We'll talk to you next time.